Last week, PSG walked into one of Europe's harshest environments, stared Liverpool down, and silenced Anfield with an absolute masterclass, dominating the midfield, nullifying their attack, and sealing a comeback victory with ice in their veins. But if you follow football, you know that this was much more than just an impressive performance, because for the first time in years, Paris Saint-Germain looks less like a collection of superstars and more like an actual team that might just be favorites to finally conquer Europe this season. PSG's long road to this point is one of the most interesting stories in modern football. Founded in 1970, their rise to prominence was rapid, reaching France's top flight and moving into their iconic stadium within just 4 years. By the mid-80s, PSG had become one of France's top sides, winning their first Ligue 1 title in 1986 alongside back-to-back domestic cups. But unfortunately, that momentum didn't last. For the next decade, they drifted, slipping into mediocrity and even flirting with relegation. Despite a brief revival in the 90s and another league title, PSG continuously struggled to cement themselves as a dominant club. By 2010, they had yet again faded into mid-table obscurity and felt like a club without direction. But as we like to say here, things changed fast in football, and PSG's fortunes were about to take an unexpected turn. Because in June of 2011, the Emir of Qatar purchased 70% of PSG shares through the state-run Qatar Sports Investment Company, a subsidiary of the country's sovereign wealth fund. Money poured in, world-class players followed, and PSG quickly went from an afterthought to the dominant force in French football. Between 2013 and 2016, they swept through France like a tsunami, winning every domestic trophy in sight for 3 straight seasons, humiliating teams, breaking records, and even leaving 30-point gaps with second place. The club had gone from not winning the league in almost 20 years to ruling the country like Napoleon in his prime. But for all their domestic success, there was still one goal that continued to elude them: the Champions League. The only trophy that could truly validate their billion-dollar project remained frustratingly out of reach. And as PSG spending spiraled higher and higher, so did the pressure to finally deliver that European crown. Pressure that would only intensify in 2017 when the club decided to pull off their biggest move yet. During that summer's transfer window, PSG triggered Neymar's €222 million release clause, smashing the transfer record and prying the 25-year-old Brazilian superstar away from Barcelona in possibly the most chaotic saga football has ever seen. Piqué's infamous tweet had promised Neymar was staying.
Are you sure about that?
Yet weeks later, he was in Paris holding up a PSG shirt. But they weren't finished. Just weeks later, they stunned Europe again by landing Kylian Mbappe, the 18-year-old prodigy who had just torn up the Champions League with Monaco. With the prince of Brazilian football and France's biggest talent now in their ranks, the message was clear. Paris Saint-Germain weren't just here to win, they were here to take over. And for a while, it looked like PSG's superstar experiment might actually pay off. Neymar and Mbappe were electric together, dominating Ligue 1 with ridiculous ease, scoring outrageous goals, racking up trophies, and destroying teams on a weekly basis. However, in the Champions League, it was the same old song and dance. In 2018, they faced Real Madrid in the round of 16, and with Neymar sidelined by injury in the second leg, CR7 sent them packing. A year later, disaster struck again, this time against Manchester United. PSG had won 2-0 at Old Trafford and seemed destined to go through, only to suffer a humiliating collapse at home. In 2020, they came closer than ever, reaching their first ever UCL final, but were outclassed by Bayern Munich. It was heartbreak of the cruelest kind, 90 minutes away from the trophy they'd spent years chasing, only to watch it slip away. The following season, it was Pep Guardiola's Manchester City who eliminated them in the semifinals, representing yet another missed opportunity. But in the following summer, hope returned to Paris, this time in the form of none other than Lionel Messi. For a moment, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. With Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe all in the same squad, PSG had assembled an attacking force unlike anything football had ever seen. A team so stacked, it felt like we were about to witness a real-life version of FIFA's World 11. Instead, what we got was one of football's most embarrassing choke jobs in history. Because in the 2022 round of 16, PSG had Madrid exactly where they wanted them, up 2-0 on aggregate with just 30 minutes to go on the second leg. But in a whirlwind of 17 minutes, Benzema ripped their entire season apart, scoring a ruthless hat-trick that turned yet another promising campaign into a nightmare. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a collapse so chaotic, it almost felt like PSG's entire identity in Europe had been boiled down to those 17 minutes of madness. But we're still not done. Because in 2023, PSG's Champions League curse struck again, this time at the hands of their old friend Bayern Munich. Over 2 legs, they were outplayed, outworked, and sent packing in the round of 16. By now, the so-called super team experiment had officially failed, and that summer, PSG wisely decided to hit the reset button. Messi left for Inter Miami, Neymar was sold to Al Hilal, and for the first time in years, it felt like the club was finally ready to move on from the superstar circus. In came Luis Enrique, along with a new wave of talent headlined by Ousmane Dembélé, who arrived hoping to somehow return to his best form. From the outside, it seemed like Enrique's arrival and the newfound sense of structure might finally unlock PSG's true potential. But in reality, the drama was far from over. Despite a strong start to the 2023-2024 season, the uncertainty surrounding Kylian Mbappe's future cast a shadow over everything. Rumors swirled, tensions grew, and by May 2024, Mbappe finally announced what had long felt inevitable. He was leaving for Real Madrid. And if losing your best player wasn't painful enough, just weeks earlier, PSG had crashed out of the Champions League yet again, this time against Borussia Dortmund. Over 2 legs, PSG had dominated the Germans, creating chance after chance, but somehow failed to capitalize. It was the same old story, another campaign ending in chaos and regret. And with Mbappe's departure, it felt like PSG's window had finally closed. A decade of outrageous talent, record-breaking spending, and still nothing to show for it. But if there was a silver lining, it was this. For the first time in forever, PSG had a clean slate. No more egos calling the shots. No more big names dictating the dressing room. Instead, they had something much better. The chance to build a real team. For years, Paris believed success would come from outspending the competition, but after over a decade of heartbreak, it's clear that what they needed wasn't another superstar, it was a system. And that's exactly what Luis Enrique brought to Paris. This season, the Spaniard has transformed PSG into a far more structured and disciplined side, a team that's no longer reliant on individual brilliance, but thrives through collective effort. It all starts with their defensive shape. PSG presses high, but not recklessly. His side wins the ball aggressively in advanced areas, but always maintains structure, ensuring they're never left vulnerable on the counter-attack. Vitinha, Zaïre-Emery, and Barcola have emerged as the face of PSG's new identity, relentless workers who press, cover space, and move the ball with precision. But it's been Ousmane Dembélé who's stolen the show in 2025. After years of inconsistency, Dembélé has finally found his groove, producing his most dominant stretch of football since arriving in the French capital. Explosive in transition, relentless in 1v1 situations, and devastating in the final third, he's been virtually unplayable. And alongside him, PSG pulled off a transfer masterstroke by signing Kvaratskhelia from Napoli. The Georgian winger has brought a whole new dimension to PSG's attack, combining dribbling flair with ruthless end product. Whether driving down the left or drifting inside to combine, Kvaratskhelia has been a nightmare for defenders, giving PSG another elite weapon capable of turning games on his own. But perhaps the biggest difference of them all is that this PSG side doesn't crumble under pressure, and that mental resilience was on full display at Anfield. Against a Liverpool side that had been Europe's most informed team this season, Paris Saint-Germain delivered a performance that felt symbolic of their transformation. They smothered Liverpool's midfield, suffocated their attack, and created countless goal-scoring chances. Even after Liverpool threatened a late comeback, Enrique's PSG kept their composure, forcing extra time, grinding through 30 intense minutes, and holding their nerve to win on penalties. Now, for the first time in years, PSG finds itself in a position where the path to European glory feels manageable. Next up is Aston Villa, an energetic, well-organized side under Unai Emery, but one PSG's newfound structure is more than capable of handling. Win that, and they're into the semifinals, where their greatest test likely awaits. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and a revitalized Barcelona are all still in the competition, giants with the experience and firepower to crush any European dream. But that's exactly the point. Unlike the star-studded sides of the past, this PSG has the discipline and resilience to go toe-to-toe with Europe's elite. After so many years of chaos, mismanagement, and mental collapses, the Paris project finally feels like it's found its identity. So, the question is yours. Do you believe this is PSG's year, or is the Champions League still too big for the French club? Let us know in the comments, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more content just like this.